I get to see which.
I'm not saying it's dangerous. It's okay.
My favorite, which one? Oh.
I was director.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order at 7:01.
Beckwith,
Here.
Caldwell, Deal, Capisi, Capisi, perdón, here, Cozzini,
Here.
Mimi, here, Sheldon,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Next is the pledge. Bob, will you do the honors?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mission statement.
The Warren Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning.
Thank you. Next, safety instructions. We have Eddie Kristen here to do it for
Good evening,
us.
everyone. Welcome to the June meeting of the Warren Newport Library Board. My name is Eddie Kristen. I'll be your security monitor tonight. Will is also at the desk. For your reference, down the long hallway and to the right, across from checkout and security desks, is the exit. The emergency exit is behind you here. Restrooms are available to the right of the self-checkouts, again, down the hall. Vending is also available down the hall and to the left. We're a little crowded in here tonight, so please remember, in the event of emergency, please remain calm and make way for security staff and emergency responders. Thank you and have a safe meeting.
Thank you. Yes.
I move to move items 13A and B to the next item on the agenda. Resolutions to honor the former executive director and 2 former trustees.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Can you repeat the motion, please?
I move to suspend the agenda and move items 13A and B to the next item on the agenda. Or the next order of business. And it was seconded by Suni.
Mimi,
Aye.
Caldwell,
Aye.
Capisi,
Aye.
Cozzini,
Aye.
Deal, Beckwith,
Aye.
Sheldon,
Aye.
ayes have it.
Oh. Okay, so first one is Stephen Bureau. Oh, it's pretty small. Okay, I'm going to read so everyone can hear. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. A resolution of appreciation to Stephen Patrick Bureau for dedicated service to the Warren Newport Public Library District. Whereas Stephen Bureau faithfully served as the executive director of the Warren Newport Public Library District from 2004 to 2014. And whereas Stephen Bureau worked with the WNPLD Board of Trustees and staff to improve resources and services to patrons of the Warren Newport Public Library. And whereas Stephen Bureau fostered positive staff morale by valuing and respecting personnel, appreciating accomplishment, and promoting professional development. And whereas Stephen Bureau created a collaborative work environment that was integral to the selection of WNPLD as a Chicago Tribune top workplace for 3 consecutive years. And whereas Stephen Bureau skillfully guided the library through periods of growth, planning, and construction, including the purchase of a new bookmobile in 2008 and the building and expansion and renovation project in 2010-11. And whereas Stephen Barrow lent his leadership to the Board of Trustees by continually sharing with them his knowledge of libraries, strategic planning, library law, and library finance, so that trustees could become their most effective in fulfilling their elected responsibilities. And whereas Stephen Barrow managed the library in an atmosphere of welcoming staff, trustees, and residents to share concerns and contribute ideas for the betterment of WNPLD. And whereas Stephen Barrow always took the high road and moved the library forward with strength and determination, despite formidable obstacles and personal sacrifice. And whereas Stephen Barrow gave back to his profession in myriad ways, including serving as president of the Library Administrators Conference of Northern Illinois and as a mentor in the Illinois State Library's statewide Public Library Management Institute. And whereas Stephen Barrow became a respected leader in the community by tirelessly advocating for WNPLD and by networking with other governmental agencies and by serving as a director on the board of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. And whereas Stephen Barrow was selected by the Illinois Library Association as the 2014 Librarian of the Year, and whereas Executive Director Emeritus Stephen Barrow will always be welcomed back as a friend of the Warren-Newport Public Library. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Library Trustees of the Warren-Newport Public Library District that Stephen Patrick Barrow is hereby commended for his dedication, loyalty, and commitment to the residents of this district and the citizenry of Warren and Newport Townships.
I move to accept the resolution.
I'll second.
Continue.
We're going to just, I'll do all in favor.
Aye.
All, any opposed? Thank you. Thank you so very much. All right, next is Lori Stracula.
Oh, Lord.
A resolution of appreciation to Lori Stracula for dedicated service to the Warren-Newport Public Library District. Whereas Lori Stracula faithfully served the Warren-Newport Public Library District for 6 years as a library trustee, including leading as president and attending nearly all committee meetings. And whereas Lori Stracula worked in collaboration with Executive Director Stephen Barrow and the Board of Trustees to improve services to patrons of the Warren-Newport Public Library. And whereas Lori Stracula lent her considerable leadership skills to the board and community, including trustee development and library advocacy. And whereas Lori Stracula contributed to the success of the library through periods of growth, planning, and construction, including chairing the Buildings and Grounds Committee throughout the 2010-11 expansion and renovation project. And whereas Lori Stracula was instrumental in the creation of the Art Acquisition Committee to ensure that the library environment is enhanced by beauty as well as functionality. And whereas Lori Stracula demonstrated her ongoing concern for the library staff, including chairing the Personnel Committee. And whereas Lori Stracula showed sincere support and generous dedication to the WNPLD family through staff appreciation and events. And whereas Lori Stracula represented the library in the larger community and marched in the annual Gurney Days Parade. And whereas Lori Stracula has continued to serve WNPLD beyond her term of office as a citizen member of the Art Acquisition Committee. And whereas Lori Stracula has shown great courage beyond her term in office by tirelessly advocating for the best interests of the library and the Board of Trustees by attending many board and committee meetings, and by offering constructive criticism and praise during public comment and public forum. And whereas Lori Stracula will always be welcomed back as a friend of the Warren Newport Public Library, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Library Trustees of the Warren Newport Public Library District that Lori Stracula is hereby commended for her dedication, loyalty, and commitment to the residents of this district and the citizenry of Warren and Newport Townships.
I move to accept the resolution as read.
A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next, Steve Meyer. A resolution of appreciation to Steve Weinberg for dedicated service to the Warren Newport Public Library District. Whereas Steve Weinberg faithfully served the Warren Newport Public Library District for 9 years as a library trustee, including extended service as treasurer. And whereas Steve Weinberg worked in collaboration with Executive Director Stephen Barrow and the Board of Trustees to improve services to patrons of the Warren Newport Public Library. And whereas Steve Weinberg lent his leadership to the board as chair of the Finance Committee. And whereas Steve Weinberg lent his acumen and advice through the audit process. And whereas Steve Weinberg contributed to the success of the library through periods of growth, planning, and construction, including the 2010-11 expansion and renovation project. And whereas Steve Weinberg showed sincere support and generous dedication to the WNPL family. And whereas Steve Weinberg demonstrated his enthusiasm for the community by marching in the annual Gurney Days Parade. And whereas Steve Weinberg has continued to serve WNPLD beyond his term of office as Treasurer Emeritus and a citizen member of the Finance Committee. And whereas Steve Weinberg has shown great courage beyond his term in office by tirelessly advocating for the best interests of the library and the Board of Trustees, by attending many board and committee meetings, and by offering constructive criticism and praise during public comment and public forum. And whereas Steve Weinberg will always be welcomed back as a friend of the Warren Newport Public Library. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Library Trustees of the Warren Newport Public Library District that Steve Weinberg is hereby commended for his dedication, loyalty, and commitment to the residents of this district and the citizenry of Warren and Newport Townships.
I move to accept the resolution for Steve Weinberg as read.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you so much for all.
I move that we resume the agenda with item 5 of the consent agenda.
Madam President, the board, thank you. I must vote.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
Great honor.
Thank you. No, that's totally up to you. You can just say it, or it's amended, whatever you want to do.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of returning to the agenda, we will be starting with item 5.
Aye.
Opposed? So the next,
I would like to remove items F1, F2, F3, and F4 from the consent agenda.
anyone else have something to remove? Okay, a motion then?
I move to accept the consent agenda with the exception of items
F1, 2, 3, and 4.
F1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Roll call.
Conway,
Aye.
Mancini,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Deal,
Abstain.
Parker-Bisi,
Aye.
Nimi,
I have to abstain also.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Ice Halley.
Okay. You wanna do yours?
Policy 1035, legal counsel and professional consultation, page 65 in your packet. In the final line of the first paragraph, usually should not be there.
Repeat that,
I believe the committee wanted usually deleted.
I'm fine with that.
Policy 1053, recording board meetings. The last line of Article 1, make that shall not be edited for content. In Article 2, the second line should be closed sessions, plural, before the comma.
Okay.
Policy 1055, public participation at library board meetings. The last line of Article 2 should read, may appear in or be heard in the recording of that meeting. The first bullet point under Article 3, the first line should read, public comment is scheduled early in the agenda of regular meetings and of most special meetings and committee meetings. So the comma needs to go, and two commas need to go.
So I'm trying to follow this one.
On page 68, Article 4, Section 4.02, the last line, area by the board president or executive director rather than of, please capitalize board and president. Article 4.04, the second bullet point, delete A if the meeting is closed to the public. Policy 3060, standards of public conduct, on page 72, section 3.03, the final line, privileges, computer privileges, comma, and or other library privileges.
So add a comma. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Joe, wasn't there, I thought there was something else in 36, that was it, 360?
Just
Oh, okay.
one Andrea brought up is
Yeah, okay,
section 4.02
of what?
of the same policy.
Oh.
Sorry, no, of
4.02.
It's 1055.
10:55.
What page?
That would be page 68. No, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Page 71, policy 3060. Under the section 3.01 minor disruptions, fourth bullet point up from the bottom, selling for profit or soliciting for charitable purposes, should be mentioned, and WNPLD in that line. Just to make sure that our policy covers our vending machines.
Then
Whatever
we
else we
also
wanna
sell
do.
things like book bags and
Yeah, exactly.
We don't want to
cookbooks.
prohibit ourselves from fundraising on the grounds.
Okay, except for the Friends of the Warren Newport Public Library and WNPLD.
I'd say or,
Oh,
or,
or.
W, and.
I think Bob has a comment.
Read that again, please.
So that line will now read, selling for profit or soliciting for charitable purposes on WNPLD property, except for the Friends of the Warren Newport Public Library or WNPLD. Just adding 2 words at the end of that line.
And or?
Do we, since this is public conduct, do we need
That's the
to
question. Do we need to
give
put it in?
ourselves permission? Yeah, we're not the public in the sense of,
It was just a suggestion to the chair, so you guys do whatever you like.
yeah, just-
I'm fine with it either way, so.
Actually, that makes sense, more sense to me. Just remove the last phrase completely and put a period after property.
Except
Oh,
the Friends of the
Friends of
Library are
Independent,
an independent
yeah.
organization. So
yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean.
The Friends need permission.
We
Does
don't
the
necessarily
library
need permission.
itself need permission
Mhm.
to sell
Right.
book bags and?
That's for public conduct. That wouldn't-
Right.
Alright, yeah, so leave that one as it is.
Leave it as it is then.
Okay.
I have one I'd like to talk about, and it'd be the last bullet point.
Under which four?
Oh, on 3060, Article 3, last bullet point, page 71,
Okay, so under extreme disturbances or minor disturbances?
minor.
Okay.
Okay.
Last bullet point says exceeding the established limits of people allowed to sit together based on limits set by WNPL. I was under the impression that the limits of a room occupancy are established by village ordinance or construction standards.
Right,
This
but
doesn't
they're
speak
in
to
our-
occupants.
I think this is for like
Congregation in a public area.
This is like
How many congregations?
10 kids getting around a table intended for 4.
But our.
So room occupancy doesn't necessarily apply there.
No.
But it would be a limit for kids at a table,
Yeah.
not 10.
It gives security the option to quote a policy when they want them to break it up.
Take meetings after.
Okay, anything else? Is there a motion then for these
I
policies?
move that we accept policies 1035, 1053, 1055, and 1060 as amended.
I'll second.
it's 36.
3060.
I'm sorry.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Mimi. Aye. Caldwell,
All right.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Parkapisi. Aye. Kopsini,
Aye.
Dio,
Aye.
Ice Harvey.
Okay, President's report. So here's my full report. One is another Library Geeky article that I wanted to share. Did anyone else see this about this was right after our May board meeting. It's about the Carnegie Libraries and about how the Aurora Public Library is moving out of their Carnegie and built a brand new library with a huge donation from from someone in their community, but it was just kind of interesting. I grew up in Waukegan, and I went to a Carnegie Library most of my childhood, and of course they're way outdated, particularly with the connectivity that we all need these days. But it was just an interesting article. It talks about library circulation and just serving patrons in these outdated buildings and a little bit about Carnegie himself. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I'll just pass that around. And then I also attended the Freedom Shrine dedication, and it was a really lovely event, I thought. I thought Ryan did a great job. There was another speaker from the Exchange Club who talked about how he was not born in this country, and so that he said that he didn't take his citizenship, the rights of citizenship, lightly, and he talked, about his own story, which was really quite interesting. It was a really nice event. I also sent letters of thanks, I'll pass this around too, to the other candidates that applied for the vacancy, just to thank them for their interest, and they're all the same letter, but I sent those. That was done on May 26th, same day as the Freedom Shrine. And then on June 9th, I did go to the volunteer luncheon. I know other people were there too. It was a really nice event. Laura always does a beautiful job, I think, and it was a really a fun afternoon. I thought people had a really nice time. Didn't you think? Yeah, it's something to look forward to. So.
And Ryan was introduced to Kaiser's Pizza.
Yes, that's right. This is the program from that. I'll pass that around for anybody who wasn't here. So that's all I have. Who else, please? Anyone? Go ahead.
Not really library related, but National Donut Day. At 5:45 a.m. I was in the parking lot of Dream Donuts, which those of you who may be new to our community burned down probably almost a year ago, an institution that we've missed, and it is back. We're happy to get our dozen plus one donuts.
I was here the other night gathering some materials, and I stumbled across an elderly gentleman reading every word on every document of the Freedom Shrine.
Oh.
He lived in the Philippines. He's visiting his daughter in Waukegan. They brought him here, and he spent most of his time reading those documents. So it was nice talking to him.
George?
A couple of things. First, I also attended the Freedom Shrine dedication and was very happy to see the Exchange Club helping us out there.
Yeah.
It's an excellent gift to the library. Second, a member of the community actually approached me and was very pleased at some of the new offerings we have for Spanish language speakers. I'd like to see us continue doing so in the future.
Okay. I want to say one other thing, and that's about this agenda, which I realize is very ambitious, and I'll try to do better in the future. I hope we can get through it all. I had a little feedback that maybe it was a little too ambitious, so we'll just press on and see how far we can make it. Apologies, and I'll try to rein it in next time. I always want to get one more thing done. Correspondence.
We don't have any legal.
No legal, but we have other correspondence, right?
Yes.
That's just some thank yous.
Oh, thank yous. Oh, this is for treats that were provided to the staff. I'll pass that around. This after the last meeting. And this, we made the Spanish language newspaper with our Spanish language programming. Couple times, yeah. Oh, there's one on the back too. Oh, this is at our places, right. Okay, so I won't talk about these other things at the places, everyone has them. And what about the memo from,
I sent that to the new trustees.
Then we're good with
Yeah,
that.
that's only relevant to the new
Right.
trustees, so.
all right, public comment, anybody? Exec Director's report, number 10.
So I have some breaking news. I am happy to announce that Warren Newport Public Library is the winner of a 2015 PR Exchange Award presented by ALA for our newsletter, Inside Anvil. So there were over 100, or about nearly 375 entries, and our entries stood out. So it is a great honor, and Jan Marsh, Nancy Stricker, Latoya, they all deserve great credit for that, and everyone that contributes to it. But the PR graphics department certainly deserves a lion's share of this award. Hard work, and when I saw the Inside Angle, when I actually saw it, I thought this is maybe the best library news I've ever seen, and this is proof that I wasn't just, this isn't just my opinion, so it's quite the honor. So. And let me pass around the press release. I'm sorry, I have copies. I didn't pass them around earlier because I wanted to get a chance to announce that for everyone saw it. And the word of mouth marketing campaign continues to go really well. We did online summer reading registration. We wanted to beat our numbers from last year. We had less than 200 people register online last year for summer reading. As of 7 a.m. Saturday, the first day you could register, we had over 200 people, and we've had 426 people register online. So that word of mouth marketing campaign is really going well. All the goals we've set for this campaign we've reached, and we're able to advertise these initiatives in the library. And that's thanks to you, because at all the regular board meetings I've been talking about these things, and you're spreading the word. That's the whole idea. Word of mouth, tell everyone in the community. So now we're talking about basically our blog. It's More Than Just Books blog. So it's more than just books.wnpl.info. Because as we get into the summer, we read some amazing books, we watch some amazing movies, listen to some great music. We want more. Hopefully we have some time this summer. And sometimes, especially after you read this outstanding novel, you want to keep the momentum going. You don't want to go from something great to something that's just, I can get into this. So if you go to morethanjustbooks.wnpl.info, there are all kinds of resources for you to find that next read, or even that next movie to see. So I encourage you to check it out.
Anyone have any other questions on the Exec Director's report?
I have a comment. I would just like to thank Diane for that complete narrative of the financial statements and the budget.
Oh, okay.
It was very, very helpful.
Oh, good.
I would agree with that.
Anyone else? Okay. 11 is reports of committees. Anyone have questions or comments about what you saw in the packet with regard to those? Artwork had to be canceled. What is the status of art?
I think we're scheduled for June 24th.
Okay. All right. Any other questions about committees' reports? What you saw in your packet?
Can I just make a comment?
Please.
When we get the policies, could we have some kind of short narrative of what changes were made? So we don't have to go back and try to figure out what happened.
So were the policies distributed, and I'll ask Gina, are you distributing them in Word format, or how are you sending them out?
And Word form.
With the track changes?
Yes, well, first for the policy, when they are sent for the committee, they are sent with the changes and comments. But once they are ready for the packet, they are just the final version with no comments.
So in the packet on your meeting report, if you would, when you list the policy, if you would just
What I
say,
can do
this
is,
Finish.
come to the next policy meeting. I'll show you something that we can
Okay,
maybe
okay.
highlight it a little bit better.
Okay.
Because what I can actually do is create a change report that actually just prints out a hard copy of the track changes that we've put in.
Okay. That's
Actually,
fine.
Nancy and I were talking about the same thing the other day, and one of the things we thought of was that possibly another thing we could do, maybe this is a different way of saying the same thing you're saying, is that if we accept all the commas and the non-substantive things, and then instead of putting the final version in the packet, if we put the track changes with a comment, if there's 3 things, then you could see at the side what it is that was added or subtracted. Would that, is that sort of similar to what you're saying?
Similar, I'd like to see both though, both the final versions that, somebody can actually read it and see what it's going to look
Right,
like.
yeah.
And a version with the changes highlighted.
That'd be helpful.
And that's just it's just a processing option when I hit the create the PDF.
So maybe we should put this, could you put this on the policy committee agenda, and then we can figure it
Sure.
out at the next policy meeting?
Yeah.
We'll add that to the agenda.
Okay, yeah, sometimes the report would just.
I'd like to add tools in general that
Okay.
we're using.
Yeah,
for
because
the
you
next
mentioned a
policy.
couple at the meeting the other night that were interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know if Kevin can attend the next one as well.
Sure, or if you want, we could try to set up a meeting, the 3 of us, and we
That
could
would
talk
work
about
as
that
well.
before the meeting, save
Yeah.
some time.
Thanks for keeping us up to speed. No problem. Might be harder than you think, but thanks.
Anything else? Bob, you have something?
Well, in the building grounds report, it says that I brought up the topic of the number isn't there, but it's 4 emergency exits, as well as a power station for hybrid cars. And we'll come to discussion tonight.
I think that's on the.
It's on the agenda later,
Yeah.
Bob,
Okay.
under
Yeah,
new
it's on the
business.
agenda.
Good.
G,
Yes.
under new business. 13G. Okay, number 12 then, whole business. I have a couple of other committee appointments I'm gonna do tonight. Since we have Sue now, I'm gonna ask Sue if she would please serve on finance and on personnel.
Sure.
Thank you.
Happy to have.
And would like one more person on personnel, and George has agreed to do that. So I think I'm gonna leave citizens as they are for now till we have our other discussion, and then we can consider those vacancies. If we need to fill them later, we can. B is signature cards. Did we all do it?
Yeah, if the board officers can see me after the meeting, this will take 2 minutes. I just have a few signatures. I finally got it worked out with the 3rd day.
Oh,
So,
the new people,
Yes.
the ones who already did.
and current.
Oh, and current.
Yes, new officers. If you're an officer, please see me for a few minutes. I apologize that this has taken so long.
Okay, so new business 13, we did A and B. And roster is on page 99.
I think this was, this is something was approved last meeting. I think we just basically wanted to verify that all this information was correct, especially the additions to.
Well, I was gonna say, because we approved the roster before Sue was appointed, and so we thought we would just do the formality of approving it.
Can we approve it with the additions of the committee members? Also?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we're gonna add Sue and George to personnel on this version, and to finance, adding Sue.
And I wasn't going to bring this up, but since you're changing it anyway, that's my cell number.
Your cell phone number.
Right. Everybody, it's okay with the home and cell phone number, Joe, Bob? I think you are the only two ones that have home and cell phone. Is that okay?
I can leave it there, I don't mind.
It's just for our cell phone,
Yeah,
just
that's
for
fine.
the board.
If anyone wants to add or subtract or, change their phone numbers, now's the time to do it.
And if you'd like to add my cell phone number on there as well, it's probably an easier way to get hold of me.
Yes.
I can't remember my cell phone number.
You can add mine when he's
How do
looking.
I call myself? I don't know.
Yours?
847
847
997
997
1080.
1080. Okay.
I'm
thank you.
sorry, what is that again, Sue?
847 997 1080.
1084.
80.
1080.
I would like to remove my personal email address.
Okay.
And my number is
South.
224
South First.
Okay.
572.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, George.
224
4,
572
5, 7, 2.
8735.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other changes? No motion?
I move to accept the board roster as amended.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Can we do this by just words?
Yeah, yeah. All in favor?
Aye. All opposed?
All opposed? Okay, next is prevailing wage ordinance, page 101.
I move we adopt ordinance 2014-15-8 prevailing wage rate for fiscal year 2015-16.
I'll second.
This one I think I will have a roll call since it's mine.
Is this union or not union?
Did you go through this?
Well, it's I mean, it's basically, it's tied into that prevailing wage.
I think it's either, can it?
It means that we basically have to pay union wages for anybody when they're not working.
Well, thank you, George, for
In
better
effect.
description.
Any other discussion?
This is required by law.
Rock and roll.
Roll call.
Katsini,
Aye.
Nimi,
Aye.
Retzlaff.
That's an old template.
Bill, Farkapisi,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Caldwell.
Aye.
Sorry. Ayes have it.
Okay, then E, ordinance, page 103 in your packet. Motion?
I move that we accept ordinance 2014-2015-9 as presented.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Okay, roll call.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Bill,
I guess.
Katsini,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Nimi,
Aye.
Caldwell,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, F is the meeting schedule for this year. We put on as discussion because Nancy had sent an email about the September date, and we thought we would put it on for discussion, and then we can vote on it next month, depending on what we decide.
Well, I see no reason for the September meeting to be Monday the 21st instead of Tuesday the 15th as it normally would be.
Is that a Jewish holiday?
Yes,
Tuesday?
So,
Rosh Hashanah ends within 1 minute of our 7 o'clock start time on the 15th.
so I would need to do some research because I am not an expert on Jewish holidays. So I spoke with Rabbi Tenenbaum of Shabbat Jewish Center of Gurnee just to get some context to this, and it ends officially at 7:45. Now I know the consideration is, I think it's kind of a difficult call because you want the meeting to be open to the public, all those of all faiths in our community. But at the same time, if you observe Rosh Hashanah, you could conceivably come to the meeting, albeit late. So I think you could start it at 7, you could move it to a later start date, you could keep it as is, that's the context.
I have 2 reasons for moving it to the 21st. The first being, that we should be inclusive of all people, whether they choose to show up or not. And the second being that moving it to the 21st gives Finance Committee, if it's the 15th, that is the shortest it can be, as in December 15th. It gives a little extra time to get those financial statements done. It's easier for the board as well. Speaking of the Finance Committee, it's the inconvenience of it's not the 3rd Tuesday, and normally people expect it to be the 3rd Tuesday. But there are 2 good reasons for moving it.
I'll ask, why is it a Monday instead of a Tuesday then?
Because of Yom Kippur.
Yeah, it's still the 22nd would be
Oh, it would be the 22nd?
Yom Kippur. No, Monday the 21st is, we don't have any religious holiday, but the 22nd we have Yom Kippur.
But the 22nd would be the 3rd Tuesday?
Yes, no, it
Well,
would be the
maybe the
4th.
fourth,
The 4th
Tuesday.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yes, my argument is the same, yes.
So after saying that, I'm looking at it here on the 15th, we still have 15th or 16th, so we're gonna do finance anyway.
Right, but
On
then
December and February and March.
it's
I
so
understand what
close
you're
that we
saying.
get the financial statements the same day as the Finance Committee meeting, and I have to allocate somehow between finishing work at 5 and starting the meeting at 8 to get those statements reviewed. And being an accountant, I hold myself to a higher level of review that maybe the average trustee wouldn't.
Can I ask, did the rabbi say that all days of a multi-day were equally important? Because I was under the impression that how we had been making this decision was that if the first day of the Jewish holiday was on our meeting day, we moved it, and otherwise we left it where it was.
His, for what it's worth, his recommendation would be for the board to start the meeting an hour later. He thought that sounded good to him. But that was his, from his perspective.
I'm curious about the 7:45, but what my understanding is that the holiday starts at sunset. And I checked sunset for Chicago for that day, and it was like 7:01. So I'm wondering where the 7:45 comes from. Whether there's some different
But yeah.
definition for, sunset
I'm
than
afraid I didn't ask him
the
to.
meteorological
So,
people are
I don't
using.
trust that they know.
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I think the rabbi gets to make the call.
It may be dusk rather than sunset.
Go ahead.
Yom Kippur is that Tuesday. I have had the joy of working with many hundreds of Jews over the years, and I can tell you from my firsthand experience, they take both Yom Kippur, generally, not all Jews, many of the Jews I know take both Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah off. So it's a holiday for them.
I,
The ones that
I get the high holidays,
It's the holiest days of the year.
yeah.
It's high, it's more holy than, the Festival of Lights,
Oh,
Purim, the other Jewish
Okay,
holidays.
I'm having difficulty saying a consensus here.
Can you take a vote?
Yeah, well,
I got a comment. Do any of the other dates interfere with any other religions?
None of
you
the
check
other
when the eye
clinics.
is and all things like that.
There was another one, but,
Yeah, we refer to, there's a holiday calendar we refer to.
yeah, no, but we didn't find anything. It was just September is really full of just holidays, but the other months, the third Tuesday didn't interfere with any holiday.
Okay.
So it's just September is kind of.
It helps finance. I'm all for it. I don't understand numbers that well, but she does, and she's asking all the time to get
It's
it together.
because if the first Tuesday of the month lands on the 15th, and the finance committee is the Thursday before, that's 15, 14, 13, 12, it's the 10th, which means that the books have got to be closed. Financial statement draft, go to Doug.
Let me rephrase this, I'm on your side.
Thank you. I'm trying
Okay,
to.
so, I'm trying to think, we don't have can we do an action item? Can someone make a motion? Because I'm not clear what the consensus is.
I move to accept the board calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Let's have a roll call on this.
You did the first motion. You did the motion, right?
Bob seconded.
He second, okay. Mimi? Aye. Caldwell?
Aye.
Beckwith?
Aye.
Falcapisi?
Aye.
Cotsini?
Aye.
Deal? Sheldon?
I will abstain.
Okay. Ayes have it.
So the schedule stands as
Yes,
printed.
stays as it is. Okay, next is G. That is the potential capital expenditures, addition of X4 exit doors. Bob clarified the number earlier, and hybrid power stations. Discussion and possible action. There's information on page 107 and 108 in the packet.
I have a question. This $70,000 cost, how much of this is for the doors and how much is for the electric power stations?
Just to be perfectly clear on this, this information is specific to the doors. There's no information about the
Power stations?
power stations. Yeah.
Bob, for those who weren't at B&G or in finance, maybe you could capsulize what you had said, that you would, what your ideas were.
Okay, as far as the doors go, okay, there's 4 outside rooms. I mean, there's 4 rooms with, that patrons use. And they have an outside wall. And I think that for life safety, there should be a way out in the event of catastrophic emergency. And yes, we've been compared to schools, but we're not a school. If I had my way, I'd put an exit door in every schoolroom, but they don't have that. But we have an opportunity. We had an opportunity when the car went through the wall, but we chose to ignore that opportunity and put a wall back here. And I think that people they shouldn't have to come back in to a hazardous zone to get out. They should be able, if possible, to walk out. It's been suggested that we have movable doors or windows that swing away. And that's all grand and fine, but that's for people who can walk, that are not in a panic situation, not wheelchair bound. If they have children that might be, I don't know the proper language, I don't mean to insult anyone, but mentally deficient children might be there. An exit door is the way out. And furniture's been discussed, and quite frankly, if it's a choice between new furniture and exit doors in those 4 rooms, the doors win in my book.
Anyone have anything to add?
I have just a comment on this. 2 of these are in areas that are for children, for small children specifically. The one in Cocos Cove and the one at the Point, very close to where the tween area will be. Particularly in Cocos Cove, which was spoken to a somewhat lesser degree in the tween area. I'm concerned about having an exit door there at all. I think it's a bigger concern to have a toddler run away from a parent, go through the door and run towards the street.
Can a toddler push
Yes.
Open a safety bar.
I can tell you, my son did it at the post office.
Well, I think maybe we need to teach the kids, don't touch unless you're told. It's just,
That's what we all do, but
The
actually.
problem is
still have to.
toddlers cannot read the sign in case of emergency. They don't know how to read yet.
teach them red.
That door,
You know,
those doors would face Oak Road. I think it'd be a bigger hazard to have them there than not.
But it's not only patrons, it's staff, it's employees, it's volunteers. We have, right now, a way out. Right? The executive director has a way out immediately if he's in his office, okay? Everybody else is in harm's way. Now,
There
explain
are
that.
ways out. The ways out are more circuitous. You have to follow direction to get to them.
You have to come back into the field of fire.
Well, there is no field of fire. Most of the, granted, the building is combustible. You will get fire in the building.
No, I'm talking from an M16.
If somebody's in here with an M16, we have bigger issues. We cannot plan for that scenario.
And what about a gas grenade, any of that stuff?
Once again,
Grenade.
Look up, do a search on libraries that have been hit, okay? We're not an isolated entity here.
but there's a reason a library is a soft target. The reason is that it's not a target that people would really go after. There's very little here to attack.
There's people here.
Not as many as you'd think on a given day. If somebody wants to make a statement, a political statement of some sort, a mall would be a more likely target than
Might
a
be.
library. We're really not very high up on the target list.
And what do you base that on?
The fact that so few libraries statistically are attacked. But I think that we have more realistic concerns, things like fire, tornado, that we really need to focus on.
And I think we've addressed that. I think we've had inspections. I think we've had safety drills. People have come in. We have an emergency evacuation plan set in. My concern, I'm from the schools. We
Yep.
don't let kids out. What if there's shooters outside?
There may be.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if they
but
run
they're
out
not-
the door and there's a firing squad on the other side, what have we achieved then?
There might be a road there too that they can run out into and get struck by a
That's
car.
what
That's
George
my
is saying.
bigger
Okay.
concern, yes.
I would like to say because of our budget restraints already, and I appreciate what Bob is saying. Of course, we want everyone to be safe 100% of the time everywhere. I don't think that's realistic. I think that we have done all that we can. We're up to code. We have our
We-
drills in place.
We
We're
were,
good.
we were to code when the building was built. It's been changed.
And it met
No,
code when
met
it was
code,
changed
yeah,
as
it's
well,
met
Bob.
code. It has to meet code, because
We
fire and
couldn't
police come
complete the addition
through.
if we didn't.
Well, I can't put a price on life,
Well,
so
nor can any of us, but.
that's what we're doing,
We're balancing dangers. There are different risks to consider.
okay?
Andrea wants to add something.
I'm with Bob in that I would like to have the world be the absolute safest it can be. I would like to have my 2 weekends ago, my middle child, who I haven't seen since January, came home and I had all 3 children under my roof at the same time. I could look at them and know they were safe. I turned my cell phone off and I went to sleep because I knew my children were safe. But I don't get to have them in the house. I have to let them go out and live life and run the risk of my daughter being snatched off the street and, my son doing something he shouldn't be doing, because I can't protect them 100% of the time. We have to allow the facility, and we can't protect all the patrons 100% of the time. We have to allow this facility to be used, and if it's in code, because, okay, we can put in 4 more doors, and then what's the next safety thing we can do? We can, have people searched and metal detected at the front door. Then we do that. Well, then what's the next thing we can do? I would like to do everything possible to protect 100% of the people, 100% of the time. But that's just not realistic when people live their lives.
Then
So-
get your library furniture.
To me, if I felt the public was in danger, the cost would not be a consideration. I don't feel that. I feel that we have to weigh the public's access to the facility with just like I have to weigh my children's safety. You know, if it's midnight on a Saturday night and I feel that there's a party that's gonna be drinking, no. If I have to physically put myself in front of the car and take spark plugs out of it, I'll handcuff myself to the kids. But there's a point where you have to weigh the public use of the facility and the freedom of the individual with, you know, wrapping them in bubble wrap.
Can we hear from Nancy? She hasn't had a chance yet.
Exits are also entrances. Basically, adding more doors could potentially cause problems in the sense of somebody could, instead of having to bring their gun in through the front door past security, all they do is drop it outside the door for Coco's Cove, open the door and grab it. Or it means that only one person has to come in past security. They go to one of these extra doors, open it, and leave in some of their cohorts. So basically, I'm seeing that doors have just about as much of a downside potential as they do that they add as much danger as they add safety.
That may be,
Bob, where I
but it's
will
an
agree with
egress
you.
situation and in a panic scenario. And I think the doors
Well,
would be.
we have trained staff that I think that if there were a panic situation, that they would help the patrons get where they needed to get.
We have drills for this purpose regularly.
You have a whole manual, I think.
The only place I see, Bob, where I can sort of agree with you, we have two rooms that I see under that only have one way out. If they had an extra set of doors into the rest of the library, so that somebody could more easily find an exit, would that help allay your concerns?
My concern, I'm with Bob as far as the safety aspect, and I truly believe this library has balanced the probability of any type of scenario with safety. We are 100% within code, and I think with you can't try to find a scenario or a solution to every problem. And I believe that since this is it's a risk and reward in a sense. Okay, we have a budget that we have to, and we have a lot of other capital projects that we are going to be looking at. And this $70,000 would go a long way towards some of the other projects that are truly necessary. Not saying that doors may not be a plus, but truly necessary for the service and the service of our patrons. And so when I look at when you try to balance everything out, I kind of reluctant to go in that direction.
Okay, would anyone have anything else new that's totally different from what's already been said? Okay, so is there a motion to come out of this discussion?
I don't know if there's necessarily a motion, it's just that I think we're kind of looking for a board consensus. Would this if we were going to look into a capital expenditure of doors, would we have the board support? And this really came out of the Buildings and Ground Committee. And would we have the board support to look into these doors? And that's kind of what we're looking for right now, is a consensus. It's not necessarily
Shall we make a
matching.
motion and take?
Yeah, that's what I think we should do.
I move that the board directs the Building and Grounds Committee into investigating and making a possible proposal to add up to 4 more doors to the existing facility.
I thought that that was more or less what we had.
This is the
But that was a
proposal.
motion, so that you take action.
Is there a second to the motion?
direct it to building and grounds to investigate.
Do we need, because I don't know if there's gonna be a charge for engineering, an engineering.
It's already here.
Well, this is a high-level estimate. The question is now, the motion that's now before the board waiting for a second is should building and grounds be directed to pursue this further?
Let's have a roll call, please. About it.
Farkapisi,
Nay?
Nimi,
Nay.
Caldwell,
Nay.
Beckwith,
Nay.
Sheldon,
Nay.
Dio,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Nay.
nays have it.
Okay. Hybrid power stations, could you fill people in on that also, Bob?
I just looked, I went to the wife shops at Kohl's, not to name drop, but that's where I saw these particular versions. And the company that installs the ones for Kohl's does it at a no cost to Kohl's. And then they charge for the electricity, the unit charges for plugging the car in. What that cost is and how it's determined, I don't know. But they reap their costs from the usage of it. And we get a piece of the action until they're paid off, and we get more. As far as the placement of it, something called underground boring, that can put it anywhere we need it or want it. I think we could possibly open the door for other libraries, be a leader instead of a follower. Hybrids are coming hot and heavy. People are starting to buy it, and it's going to pay for itself in the long run. It'll be added income to the library. I think it's a win-win for everyone.
Would it take an existing parking place?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
If we don't
if
have.
somebody is already, so if we're fairly busy, somebody would park there or just, and nobody would be able to use it for charging?
The way you see it in
Or,
most places is they'll have reserved hybrid or electric vehicle only spaces.
Like a handicap.
okay,
And there'll usually be a preferential location near the building to encourage use of electric vehicles by patrons.
We need to be a leader or follow.
The new school has one. It is, I think, something to look into.
And Bob, you're saying that the company that puts it in pays for the installation and that they
That
earn money from
particular
it?
company.
That's
So
one
might the
option.
library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
That's
there's
one
many
option.
ways. I'll move that the Buildings and Grounds Committee investigate hybrid power stations for future installation.
I'll second that.
So we open to comment now? I do believe it's something that we should probably be doing when that tipping point of we lose our parking spaces, because I can't imagine any company doing that for free without wanting those spaces dedicated both as prime spaces and nobody else can use them unless they're charging, while we have a real parking shortage here. So I do believe that this is definitely something worth determining when we get there, but right now, if we had unlimited spaces that, 10% went unused all the time, I would be all for it if somebody else was paying for it. But right now, with those limited spaces and maybe not so many electric cars that it would be utilized all the time, I mean, if I knew that there would always be an electric car charging there and it's not taking other space, then I would be for it too, but I don't know that we're at that point.
I
My
think we're
feeling-
getting to that point. I think we're at the point where a large number of the vehicles that are on the market are now hybrid electric. And so you're seeing where more of our patrons will be driving them. I think the demand is definitely there.
I just don't think, I like your motion very much because I think we don't know enough about it to really make a decision, but it does sound like it's really worth checking out. I think it, what can it hurt to
And
get
I
the
would put,
information?
it's not like it has to be at the next meeting, we have to discuss it.
Right.
It just, for buildings and grounds.
Should come out of
It's
buildings and grounds
facts,
figures.
Maybe what we should consider is our budget is coming to a year end, but this should be considered and investigated prior to the approval of the next budget.
It wasn't too long ago that this board was looking to purchase property across the street for parking. And because parking is such a premium. And I'm concerned that we're going to be giving up spaces for something that is coming, it's not here yet, and limiting the parking spaces for the people that are already here. So I think this is something we really need to look at, is that we've already been criticized, we were criticized because we didn't have enough parking spaces when we built this building. And that's the reason we really looked at across the street to buy some property and put some parking lots in. And so to take up space for something that's coming down the line so that we are on the cutting edge, I rather err on the side of that we have enough parking spots for the people that are parking the cars.
My thought on this is, and maybe I'm looking at this differently than a lot of people here are. First of all, we're talking about 2 or 3 spaces at the most. Second, you say we don't have parking. You're right, we don't have a lot of parking on site. But there are other ways besides a car to get here. And I don't think we're encouraging our patrons enough to find other ways to come here. There are bus lines that run in Gurnee. You can ride a bicycle here. I think we should be encouraging alternative ways of coming here, not just relying on cars. And add to that, there is parking in this area. There's parking at the Village Hall, there's parking at the high school next door, except on nights when you have a football game, and quite frankly, we're closed those nights, we close on Fridays. So I think the parking situation is not as bad as we think it is.
In times like this, George, when I kind of struggle with things, I go to the library's mission statement. And it says, provide the community with access to information, kindle the imagination of children, adults, and support lifelong learning. Nowhere in there does it say that we're trying to promote energy efficiency, nothing in that direction. So I go to the mission statement.
See, I think that it does kindle imagination. When you start going away from, let's drive our cars everywhere like we do, and start getting people to do things differently, that by definition kindles imagination. The electric vehicles that are coming on the market now are very imaginative. Yes, they're pricey right now, but they're the future. And if we partially embrace that future, that puts us in a position to be leaders. And that is a good thing as far as I see it.
Okay, let's have a vote.
Good. One other question before we take that vote. Does anybody here at the table know how many spaces we lose during the winter when heavy snows come?
A lot.
A lot. Well,
I've
why
done
don't we
it.
have the contractor clean those spaces out so we have all of our spaces available?
Okay, we're going
Because
off the
that
topic.
costs
Okay, let's stay on the
more.
topic.
I was on topic.
Okay. Let's have a vote.
Could you read the motion again and tell us how?
That buildings and grounds investigate hybrid power stations on the future. Buildings and grounds committee.
So yes vote is charging buildings and grounds.
To get more information.
To get more information.
Can we add before
It's your
next,
motion.
before next fiscal year? Before fiscal year 15, 16?
It was your motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can amend your motion.
Well,
Bob,
I would
you
put-
seconded that
yeah.
motion?
Fiscal year
You still
15,
second?
16 starts in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yes,
16, 17, sorry.
You still are seconding that motion?
Thanks, Doug.
Bob second stands.
Okay. Roll call.
Mimi,
Aye.
Caldwell,
Okay?
Parkapisi,
Aye.
Cousinis,
Aye.
Deal,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Sheldon,
Aye.
ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, where are we now? H. I'm gonna let you take this one.
Well, I think.
Adoption of the budget, page 109 is the narrative.
Right. In the sake of time, I'm happy to go into further detail, but the budget narrative essentially lays out, I think, the budget pretty clearly.
Very clearly.
Thank you.
It was updated. Well, I mean, I have to thank. Well, this is something I wanted to do. I have to thank my old boss in Arlington and my predecessor for putting this in place. This is very much the same thing that you've seen before. So. But I thank you for reading it ahead of time, and I think it's better for me to see if there are any questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to
No, I think
waste
that's a
time
great
by
idea. Yeah.
kind of dialogue if people feel comfortable or not, so.
No questions? Is there a motion?
I move we accept the budget for fiscal year 2015, 2016 as presented.
I'll second.
Parkapisi,
Aye.
Mimi,
Did we do discussion on it?
Oh, is there
Oh,
no
sorry.
discussion?
Discussion?
Oh,
Oh.
I saw everybody else.
I kind of thought questions would suffice for that, but yeah, thank you for the
Aye.
reminder.
Aye.
thank you. Deal,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Cousinis,
Aye.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Caldwell,
Aye.
ayes have it.
I can say one thing.
Please, of course.
No, I just want to thank the Finance Committee, thank Andrea, Steve Weinberg, several members of the board that participated in this, Doug Weideberg, Marie Reese, the management team, everyone that worked on this budget. It really was a collaborative effort. Andrea and I met early on, we talked about how we wanted to see the budget process being done, and I think there's still some things I want to see next fiscal year, but I think it was a good effort, so I just want to thank everybody. It was a good collaborative effort, I felt.
Thanks to the staff too, because we totally changed how we budgeting this year. Love Ryan and Doug, and we thank Doug for changing. Who's, he, at least in front of me, he never voiced any opposition to the change. So I think the staff really, from every single staff person who participated, and there's so much that we don't know here that happened behind the scenes, that we thank them all.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Aye. This is just information, so it's time for the semi-annual review of closed minutes, which is done by Nancy.
Tom and I have
Tom.
done it before.
Yep, so you can communicate offline about when you're gonna do that. Just a reminder. Okay?
For the July meeting.
And probably since you've been here, there's a form to fill out that becomes part of the packet. I sent you that, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we're set with that then. All right, J is discussion of committees. Use of committees, committee of the whole, and citizen members on committees with possible action. I allowed 15 minutes for this discussion. So I thought a lot about this. I think that I'd like to start it off by talking about committee of the whole. If that's okay with everyone. And the information included in our packets was page 127. We had this chart before, Steve made this, Noreen. And this tells us what other libraries are doing. This goes to the end of the packet, this long table. So what are your thoughts on, well, and one other piece for those who might not have been here was that we did entertain this idea last spring, or was it last fall? We talked about it before, but didn't get any traction. But the climate of the board is different now, and so
I personally am in favor of it. I think it would be an efficient use of our time. The way that policy is working now, we have gone to almost pretty much in every other month. We've got out of schedule now, but we are going 6 times a year. We could distribute that policy work throughout a monthly meeting. Same thing for building and grounds. What are other people's thoughts? I don't want
Are you thinking committee of the whole would meet one
other time
night
per
in a
month. Yes. Mm-hmm.
You've never thought you'd hear me say this, but I concur with your, I think we're meeting way too many times.
Mhm.
And we're redundant. We do it in committee and then we do it at the board table.
Yeah.
So anything that can expedite that, I'm for.
When I was chair of policy, this was a particularly frustrating thing for me, is that we would, in fact, someone in the spreadsheet says, they stopped having meetings because the things would be sort of reworked and retooled once the full board came. That's great. Everyone needs to understand, everyone should be able to ask questions, but if we had a different meeting at which that could be done and everyone was there, it seems like, then we could just come here and have a voting meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So what are other people's thoughts?
I have a question on it. A lot of those libraries, the finance committee does not meet often at all.
I know, I
Like
noticed that also.
Quarterly or
Or
once
twice a year.
How do they do that, do you know?
I think, because I was thinking about this and think about the pros and cons, because there are pros and cons to both methods. And I think what they do is that the treasurer comes and meets with the executive director and the business manager, if there's a business manager. Some libraries don't have business managers, and they do that business as a kind of a side meeting. Yeah. So I think that's why that model works in those cases.
What are other thoughts? Go ahead.
So I'll throw this out there. I think that having policy and finance particularly is useful, and that there's a lot of work that gets done in those 2 meetings. I think if we try to put that effort into a committee of the whole, it would tend to be a very long meeting. I think having smaller, shorter meetings are preferable.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a lot of effort to go through in one session, have that both policy work and finance work, in addition to buildings and grounds. I mean, think about the volume of work we're doing right now. You're talking about roughly 2 hours a month, or 2 hours every 2 months in policy. About what, an hour and a half?
Oh, no.
An hour.
Oh, you did
60 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
We went over, 7 minutes last time, but that's the anomaly.
It's a rarity.
Isn't the policy manual pretty much done as
Yeah.
far as?
The reason why we have so many right now, this is just my opinion, but we have a lot right now because people had a lot of ideas about some things that needed tweaking in light of our recent board problems. But most of those policies that we're doing are really not on the schedule, so to speak. We're off the schedule on doing that. Now, of course, that happens from time to time. We get a new type of material, and then automatically comes fines and fees, and circulation has to come to the board. And so often things come out of their order, I realize that. But once we get whatever we have left, that you said was going to go on the July agenda, I don't think there are more than 6 left for the remainder of the year. 6 or 7.
And if we don't need the meetings, I'm not suggesting we hold policy meetings or hold finance or anything else for the sake of holding them.
No, right.
And I think committee of the whole is one way to do it, but having subcommittees helps as well, in that we can chunk out the work. If there's no work, you don't meet that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might be meeting a little too frequently with our committees, but I'm not sure having committee of the whole would necessarily be any less effort for us.
It would be much more time efficient, I think, than spending, first of all, we spend 15 minutes at the end of every meeting deciding when we're going to meet all the committee meetings. And for me to be able to block out, say, one other night, say it was a different Tuesday night or whatever night it was, that would be simpler for my schedule, I think, to know when I had to come instead of having to come multiple times.
Well, as far as the spending time at the end of this meeting, deciding when all the meetings are, I believe that Andrea has a set date for her finance meetings. At the end of policy, we set the date for the next policy meeting. So I'm not seeing that it should be taking
Right,
any
right. Actually,
significant
this
amount of
month was-
time
you did
at
much
the
better.
end of
Mhm.
the monthly board
Right.
meeting.
One question I did have was, even if we did committee of the whole, don't you think you still would have to, whatever you would call it, you could call it a policy chair or a policy lead,
You
you'd
need
still
a
have to
subject
have
matter
someone
expert.
driving. Yes.
I think that, you know, there are certain aspects of the committee of the whole that can work with the board we have now. Because I believe every member of this board has demonstrated over the last month, but will do their homework, will come prepared. Committee of the whole doesn't work when people don't do what they're supposed to and read everything and get everything done and are ready to come and discuss and not, wait a minute, I need 5 minutes to read that, or I didn't do this ahead of time, I didn't edit the, not pointing fingers, but I didn't bother to create a draft of the policy that I'm proposing. Things like that. So it only works when everybody's prepared. I do believe there are heavy times for finance committee, like when we're doing the budget, or we're spending the time discussing the policies that policy committee sends to finance committee that we have to do. We try to crunch those into one meeting. So there might be times where when we're just doing financial statements, if we get that done at committee of the whole, but that puts us under the time crunch of putting the committee of the whole very short, because we're squeezed a lot of the time by the time we get the financials. By the time we get to the meeting, I think it was 2 or 3/15ths of the month we had this. So we wouldn't be able to have it 3 weeks ahead or 2 weeks ahead for finance committee. But I think our committee, so I think finance committee could do it, become part of committee of the whole, as long as we could break apart on those times of year that we had a heavier workload. Because I don't know that we would need to drag every board member through slogging through
Right.
every line item on the budget.
Just those financial policies is a duplication. Because finance has them, then they come to policy committee, so committee of the whole seems like it would even condense that. I don't know.
I wasn't finished. I
Do a
want
trial
to
period?
But I don't know that our committee would work at all.
No, I agree with that. What
because-
does everyone else think about art?
Art's
Can we-
gotta be on its own.
Please. I had a thought about the art acquisition committee, and when I look at that, I think of it as more of a task force, because I think there's certainly a lot of work to do, and the work could be for 5, 10 more years, but I think the difference between the art acquisition, what we call a committee now, and these other committees, is that you're always gonna have a finance committee at the Warren Newport Public Library, you're always gonna have a policy committee. At some point in time, their acquisition group may outlive its usefulness, so I think you would probably, if you were to adopt committee of the whole, we would still continue to meet in this as a task force, and still it would. So I think it would act as the same group, but I think that would work okay.
I like that idea.
There are only half a dozen financial policies. If
No, I
they're
think
looked
there's
at
more than
every other year, I'm just thinking that, all right, having finance take a look at them before they go to policy, that doesn't strike me as enough, duplication of work or, to warrant changing things. There may be other reasons, but I don't think that the financial policies is,
2000s, right?
yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, there are 12 of them. But, I mean, come on, did finance even look at wage scale?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'm sorry, but how long did you spend on it?
I don't remember, it was December.
Yeah, my guess is that it was, what I'm saying is some of these are so,
We only do it, the only reason to change policies, financial policies, are when the board, the policy committee sends them to us on the schedule.
Yeah.
If there's a change in generally accepted, what's it called?
Accounting principles.
Accounting principles, or what's the one, GAS?
Yes.
Governmental standards. And you know, it is a good idea to review your policies financially every once in a while. So we changed some depreciation lives one year, but those
4
are the
minutes
reasons.
are left on this discussion.
Okay, so I would like to suggest that instead of changing to committee of the whole, we combine maybe for a month or two what we can combine into one meeting, just going one right after the other, and see how that works.
Okay, rather than one meeting to consecutive meetings.
One suggestion is simply schedule the meetings so that they're back to back.
Yeah.
Have a designated meetings day, rather than having,
Well, I think that the issue there is then whoever comes to policy knows what's going on policy, and then if you don't, you come to the board meeting and you question what the policy committee did. It should be cleaner than that. Either everyone has to read their email and make suggestions prior to the board meeting, so we can just know what's going on, or finance or whatever, or we do committee of the whole where everyone would be here and be privy to other information. So essentially, it would be a committee of the whole if we had one other meeting night. I hope. I don't know. I would like to try committee of the whole. I've never done it. If we could do it for 3, 4, 6 months, there's nothing that precludes that we can't jump off that train and go back to what we're doing if it doesn't work.
That would be my preference, that
If
we
we
just
did
agree to give it a trial.
If we scheduled all the meetings in one evening, could we produce one agenda so that one meeting could start as soon as the other finished? Because, you know, like last week, building and grounds finished 10 minutes early, but we couldn't start till 8, finance couldn't start till 8 o'clock. So I don't know if that's obviously an only issue.
Well, if it was the committee of the whole,
we could do
That
it as a
would-
But we
hybrid.
don't have a committee of the whole.
Well, how this is a suggestion, a hybrid. We have a committee of the whole, but we have different sections of the meeting. So
We don't have a committee of the whole.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in favor of voting for committee of the whole. I'd be in favor of voting to put of all our committees on the same night. But the only question in my mind is, can we produce an agenda saying that finance committee immediately following building and grounds?
See, to me, that's not enough different from what we're doing.
You need a-
Right now, we have B and G and finance back to back. That's one night. And then often we would have art, although we're saying we're gonna take art out of the mix, but at any rate, we often have art followed by policy committee.
Can't we have policy, B and G, and finance on one night?
Well, you don't always need to have policy. What I'm saying is, I don't think if we had committee of the whole, that we have to treat every committee every time. Sometimes B and G
understand
might
that,
not
but
be meeting.
Couldn't we do them all in one night, and whatever committees met that month, we just,
I think
That is
To me,
committee of
that's
the
a
whole.
committee of the
Yeah,
whole.
that's committee of the whole.
right, that's what I'm saying, but we don't need to, I feel
you're
that
saying for the
if
trial
we were
period.
voting on committee of the whole, and let's go to committee of the whole, I would vote no. But if we're voting on putting everything together in one night and see how it works, and keep those as short as possible, then I would vote yes.
That is committee of the whole.
No, it's putting, in my mind, once you vote committee of the whole, you need a new motion to get rid of committee of the whole if it doesn't work out. If this is just putting everything together and there's no change other than we're acting as if it's committee of the whole.
Okay. Bob, we haven't heard from you.
Well, it really doesn't matter because I don't work. All my evenings are free. I can spend as much time or as little time as needed to accomplish the task. So I'm rather different, I guess, from most people.
Can I say something?
Please.
Bob brought up a good point, and one of the things I was thinking about with this, whatever we do is, as we move on into the future to attract new board members, we have a diverse group on this board. We have people that don't work, people that work, and I think and I'm not saying this would be more attractive to someone that is, working and they commute an hour, or plus to Chicago each day or whatever. But I think that's a consideration too, to look at, you know, maybe as we're trying and see if to see how this would accommodate different, you know, our different board members' lives. So, because you're all volunteers, you all have a million other things going on. We're all I'm very grateful for all the time you put into this, and I want to make sure we continue to have excellent people to serve as trustees. So,
Okay.
I think that goes towards that.
I think I would be in favor of trying committee of the whole, just to see, as a trial basis.
And make it that period, set it like 6 months or 3 months or whatever. And that way you don't have to motion out of it.
Right.
It ends automatically. If we like it, make another motion to make it permanent.
Well,
Let's try
the
3
motion
months.
part's the easy part. I mean,
Right.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
What about having periodic committees? There are times of the year when we have more work to do. There are times of the year when we have less work to do. During the periods when we can schedule our heavier workloads for policy and for finance accordingly. Why not have committee of the whole when we don't have a lot of effort to put in? So that we're not meeting for the sake of meeting. And then have committees when we need committees.
I wouldn't be in favor. I would like to try a change. That's what I would
Okay.
like to do.
I move that we change our use of committees into a committee of the whole model for the next 3 months. And during that 3-month period, I don't know about citizens, do you want that in the motion? Citizen members?
Well, I think if we do committee of the whole, citizens are kind of on hold. That would be
Right,
my impression.
Right, okay, I agree on that. And citizen members, we will address citizen members after that 3-month period.
I'll
Or
second that.
make them aware. of
Oh,
the
we
meeting.
would definitely make them aware of what we're doing here, of course we.
No, what I'm saying is make the citizen part of the committees, make them aware of the meeting nights, and if they choose to come, choose.
But not
But
be part of
they
the
wouldn't
committee.
participate, they could observe. But
Right.
committee of the whole is a board function,
Right.
a board activity.
Yeah.
So when are we proposing to do this committee of the whole? Obviously, if there's going to be any finance work done at it, other than just like a review of some policies, which is a very small part of the total work of
You know,
finance.
we need a second on that motion.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay.
But you're still in discussion.
But when, basically, if we schedule this committee of the whole for the Thursday prior to the board meeting, as finance usually has been, that allows just about no time for any policy work from that evening to be included in the board packet that's available the next day.
Is there any chance of
Yeah.
getting the finance reports any earlier?
I have a suggestion. If we do try this committee of the whole, and, you know, Doug, I would hope you weigh in after I comment. Instead of approving May's financial statements in June, at the June board meeting, we move that to the July board meeting, and that gives us a month of flexibility in between. And, you know, now we're 6 weeks behind instead of 2 weeks, which is not all that bad. But that would give you flexibility with when you do your night, and that might give Doug and the bookkeeping company some flexibility, because everybody's gonna have to read those statements and be ready to discuss. Because when I say, does anybody have any questions, I don't want anybody to not have questions because they didn't have time to look at it.
My concern is our citizen members. They provide some valuable insights.
They do.
And that's a resource that I really hate giving up.
Okay, let's vote on this motion, and then we can discuss citizen members. Well, Except
think
your
they're all
motion
wrapped
said
up.
that we would put citizens on hold, correct?
I can
It's
mention
just 3 months.
if you like.
It's only
But
for
I think
3
committee
months,
of the
though.
whole is no citizens, and that,
I agree.
that's it. And then I think I need to add when we begin. I think
I
we
think
begin
you'd also
July
need to
or
add
August.
with the exclusion of our committee.
Well, our committees,
With that, it'd have to be part of the motion, yes.
yes. Do you want a beginning month, beginning in August?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should start in August,
Okay.
yeah.
I think you should rescind your prior motion and just make a new one. Too many
Well, it's the same so far, except I just added beginning in August.
Okay, what do you have so far, Jean?
To change our use of committees into one committee of the whole, without making aware of the citizen member to be on hold after a 3 months period, beginning on August 2015.
Okay. And having the art committee become a task force.
I still call it.
I did, I seconded. I still second.
Yeah.
And having our committee become a task force.
Are we still in discussion?
Mhm.
We have nothing in the policies for task forces.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
we
we
should
do.
continue.
We do.
We do?
I think it still sounds like a committee to me. It looks and acts like a
But I
committee.
don't know if it has to be a board advisory.
It says
We have some
ad hoc
ad hoc
committee or
committees.
a-
But I'm not seeing that art acquisition really meets what I normally think of as an ad hoc committee.
Okay,
An
let's
ad
see what
hoc
it says.
committee is one that's around for 2 or 3 months to set up our participation in Gurney Days or the
The
It's
staff
not
luncheon.
listed as-
staff
It is
appreciation.
not listed as an ad hoc committee, that's not it.
It was.
I don't.
It was originally, but then it changed.
Okay, but I don't think that task force shows up anywhere. Yeah, I don't think that.
George is searching task
I'm
force.
just thinking, yeah, I don't.
Yes, I am actually.
If it's for 3 months, I see no reason to change the name of it.
All right, well then, maybe I could suggest that you say that will exempt art from the committee of the whole.
Fine, right, that's fine.
Would that be a good solution? I do think art is a different committee, and that it doesn't need to be part of the committee of the whole. Okay, so instead of,
Having art acquisition become a task force.
no, exempting art acquisitions from committee of the whole. Okay, roll call.
Did you read it?
Wait for somebody
Or
to-
lost Bob?
We lost Bob.
Oh,
Do we want to, and not on the motion, this is just another discussion, should we pick what meeting night that will be usually, we'll do it next month, on July agenda?
yeah, I think we should put it on the July
Yeah.
agenda if it passes.
Do we have other things on the agenda that we could just table this for a few minutes and move on to something else until Bob returns? Or do we just
Yes.
move on?
We want to go on to the packet. Okay,
If we could, because I think this will be, hopefully, we'll see what the consensus is on this. So, we all discussed, talking to you individually, that the executive director's report as it exists could be better. And, I looked at a lot of different reports that the libraries use, and they're all over the place. Some are very simple one-page reports that are not adequate. There's some that are kind of in between that update the highlights of the library, which I wasn't thrilled with. And then there's some that are very, very extensive, and I think it's too much information, probably like what we're using now. So you should have a handout. I don't have it, but you should have a handout. And what I've done is I proposed a couple of things. I proposed a change to the existing executive director's report, and it's essentially changing around the information the way it's presented. I've taken out a few things that I don't think. Yes, I don't think they're
at your place.
yeah,
No,
relevant.
yeah.
looking at the Illinois standards for these reports, essentially they say you should include library statistics and include information about library operations and services.
Good evening. The library will close in 15 minutes. Please bring any materials that you'd like to take home with you to the checkout
I'm not
desk.
sure if I should talk real
Thank you for visiting the Warren Newport Public Library.
So the way that I'm proposing this format would be at the very top, an executive summary. So hopefully you will take the time to review this report before the meeting, but if you ever were short on time, you could always just look at the executive summary, look at the highlights, what's happened. And this wouldn't be just for me, but for the library in general. It would also include some specific things I'm doing. But there's the executive summary. And then it would be broken down into different areas of the library, not unlike it is now. Then you would go to the appendix, which would be statistics, and all the statistics would be at the back of the report. I don't necessarily like the way statistics are presented in this report, so I would propose some kind of grid system for statistics. So that's essentially what I'm proposing. In addition, you should have a handout that would be a quarterly report, because I think one of the things that we're missing, that seems to be disconnected, is updates on major projects that we're working on. So what this would be a quarterly report. The example you're looking at is the Carrier Memorial Library in Lexington, Massachusetts. They use this quarterly report. And it basically keeps the board updated on where projects stand, who's responsible, timelines. Importantly, it ties in the strategic plan. So what part of the strategic plan is this targeting? And how the project is funded, if it has funding. And the only thing I'd really like to add to that is a priority. So you know what the priority level is on these projects.
I love this quarterly one.
Okay.
What do other people think? Bob, when you stepped out, since we had a motion and we didn't want to vote without you, so we went on to the next 1K. Are you following?
I'm with you.
Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure.
Because I think this quarterly report kind of fills in a gap that's missing. Because I don't think you're getting this information in the executive report.
Yeah.
So I think it fills in a gap, hopefully. And it will tie into the new strategic plan.
It kind of seems like that
This is a project.
project report that we had started a while back that kind of went to the wayside.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that came up as I was discussing this. Noreen and I talked about it. It's very similar to the project report that was used in the past.
I'm a fan.
Any plans to move this to PowerPoint format?
Is that what you want, George?
No, but just making sure.
You want a motion, Brian?
Well, yeah, I want your feedback too, and I'm curious on how much information. Well, especially the statistics. Do you like the statistics that are in the report? I think this will help to pull them out and present them separately. Is it too much? Do you want to go with what we're providing now and then make that call down the road?
I like the statistics. I'd like to see the numbers in a separate chart, not just as the numbers on top of the bar graph.
Right.
Because this is not very readable.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, I just kind of quickly put this together in terms of a template. I don't like the way that the numbers are presented as well, so it would be, I think, like a grid structure.
Yeah.
If I might comment about review of information in the board packet in general, not the executive director's report specifically. I would like that most of the sections of the board packet that come out, that are sent to us, I would rather like a 1 or 2 sentence email comment from you about the majority of them. Some of them don't need it, but some do. And there are some that I think especially need it. And my example of that from this packet is when you sent out the revised agenda. 1 sentence with the revised agenda saying, we forgot to include something for building and grounds. It is now in as new business G, that would have saved me a lot of time looking through, trying to find what had changed.
Sure, okay. So like basically an overview of the information that is attached to the.
Yeah, it could be a simple,
Not necessarily a total overview, it's just.
no, just, memo from Roger, Roger Ritzman sent us this memo about a recent Illinois Supreme Court decision on, annexing property to district libraries. Just one sentence, about what's going on in that particular. It doesn't need to be a
Sure.
full page or detailed, but just.
Yeah, good feedback. I'll do that. Thank you.
So do you want a motion on this?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I move that the board accept these sample proposed format changes to the director's report, and that you add a quarterly report on major projects as well.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's go back to the, to Sue's motion. You want to read it? I know. Shall I look?
Sorry.
Do you want to have Sue read it or something?
To change our use of committees into a committee of the whole and make aware the citizen member to be on hold for a 3-month period beginning August 2015, accepting art acquisition from committee of the whole.
Exempting art from a committee of the whole. And I second it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So next month, we'll decide on the time to try it. In the meanwhile, I need to, don't you think we'll have to think of a way or plan a time to communicate with our citizen members and let them know right away.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
So just so that I'm clear, so next finance committee meeting, we'll be doing the June statements,
Yes.
and in August, we will not be doing the July statements.
Right.
Those will happen in September.
Are the statements something that you, Ryan, and Doug can go over? And bring to the board?
Yeah. I mean, I normally review them in detail. It takes me two or 3 hours.
You could just do that.
And if I have questions, they're usually not that, now they're not involved. In the beginning, I was sending them back every month for like the first 3 months. But, we've cleaned up the opinion and a lot of other things, so.
But
probably
if
not.
need be with the statements, could you still do that as we do it now, but just the three of you?
If the
and
board
bring it
gives
to the
me
board
permission
meeting?
to, I'm happy to do that.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll do it next
I mean, if the board gives, I haven't had the authority to meet with, the board policies prohibit me from meeting and directing employees on my own. Like if I ask them to do something that's outside of a committee, I'm not allowed to do that.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, L. Strategic planning,
This looks a little ambitious.
yeah.
So this, we'll talk about this further. The reason I wanted to bring this up tonight and start to talk about the tentative outline is that the Inside Angle deadline is July 1st. And so I'd like to start to promote that we're doing a strategic plan and promote the fact that we're going to do focus groups and a survey and put in a link in the Inside Angle or a bit.ly or a tiny URL to direct people to take the survey online. So we can, certainly we'll talk about this in further detail. I basically just wanted to start the discussion to see if you are if the board is okay with
Attention,
starting the
please.
conversation with the community.
The library will close
Are
in
you
5
going to
minutes and
have
reopen
that-
tomorrow at 9 a.m.
In the-
Please bring any materials you'd like to take home with you to the checkout desk at this time. Thank you.
Oh, that's fast. Is July deadline you're gonna make for the link and the survey?
Yeah, I mean, the survey doesn't necessarily have to be complete, but what is the, I'll refer to Jan, when will it actually go out, the Inside
It
Angle?
won't go out until August, so we have some.
Because I think the board should have
The results.
approval of the survey.
Absolutely, yeah, the idea is just to
Lay the groundwork.
lay the groundwork and put a URL that we can populate later.
Okay.
But what is your time frame for doing the planning process?
We look at project milestones on the bottom of the first
Yeah,
page.
pretty ambitious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the strategic plans, I don't know, this is the, you could do it for a year, but, I'm of the opinion we need a strategic plan. I'd like to
Yeah.
move swiftly and get it done. Obviously, the strategic plan is the responsibility ultimately of the board, so the board feels differently. It's certainly your prerogative to change the milestones, but.
So then I don't see agenda items for July. This should be an agenda item.
It should, it's an
Should we do a
oversight.
survey?
We changed this, and I think I accidentally deleted it, and it was a miss. I was gonna put it as back on the agenda
For July.
for July.
Yeah.
My concern with timing is that schools will not be in session, and you're gonna be trying to get input from teens, from parents, etc. That'll be harder to do without support from the local school districts. So really, you won't be able to start that part of this effort until September.
Well, we meet with school leaders over the summer,
You can
so.
meet with the school leaders, but the school leaders can't really get anything out to the parents until they got the kids in front of the teachers.
Right.
Well, they can't do their communication.
Get
How many
emails
people
all the
actually need to
time.
communicate?
Good point, George. Everyone. Well, I don't think.
I think that, in my opinion too, this is the perfect time to do it, because I think if you push it into the winter and get into the spring, it's just, this is kind of in my experience, the ideal window to do a strategic planning process.
I agree with the overall timeline, it's just I don't think we have enough time for community input. I think you're just,
Well, if it goes on the Inside Angle, we can link it, or Park District, Village Board,
So,
the boards, you can all keep them up to snuff, and they all communicate.
George, are you proposing maybe extending the research part to like July through October? Okay, I mean, that's.
School
Probably
starts
fair.
so early now. I mean,
School
if you
starts
allow all
early.
of September and
It
you've
starts
already
mid-August.
networked with your community and school leaders.
I'll tell you, I'm not sure how much school administration would push under staff to get responses. How are you envisioning that?
I'm just
Communication.
suggesting a communication through the teachers. You can get a flyer basically approved through their communication departments that would go out with the students on the first day of class.
So then if you allow till the end of September, why isn't that enough
On
time?
the first day of class?
Well, okay,
No.
not the first day of class. Shortly after the first day of class.
Those of us parents know that, maybe the mothers know that the first week of class, you have to set aside an hour a day, every time your kid comes home, to fill out more and more
Forms for how
Or for that
Well,
matter, we could
And
coordinate.
teachers are to the 100th degree of that, so they're not gonna wanna,
We could coordinate with the school librarians as well.
that would be a better option. That'd be a much better option, because actually, their first couple of.
The library
sessions
is now closed.
Are open, they need fillers, that would be a better, yeah.
But
that's
even
what I
so,
did.
I still, you don't think till the end of September is enough time?
Yeah,
for
we
you
could
to
do it by
respond?
then.
I think it is enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would work, it's just tight.
There's no question.
It is a little, but if you're ready to, jump right on it at the beginning of the school year.
I'm more concerned about the survey by next month, that's the actual survey. Are we reusing one that we've already used, or are we creating one?
We have surveys we've used. I've got some ideas for some surveys. No, it's certainly worth the discussion because that's an important component of this. We already have some data from the community needs assessment, and I think there are different philosophies on surveys. So you look at some strategic plans. They decide to do the initial research, and then they do their SOAR analysis, and then before they get into envision implementation planning, they do survey the community then once they've had some data. But I think that really slows down the process, in my opinion. That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
The other, tough decision to make is how detailed do you want the survey to be? Do you want to get very specific with questions and have a 40-question survey, or do you want to try this to stick to 4 or 5 questions, make it simple, more attractive for users to get more data? Yeah, that's a big discussion,
And
so I agree with you.
who's collating the surveys when they come back? Is it all electronic?
My thought process is to encourage people to do it electronically, but I think you have to have a paper survey because there's just too many people in our community. Yeah, we would do that in-house. Well, initially I was very ambitious and I thought, we can do a survey in the inside angle, but there are all kinds of problems with doing that. We just don't really have the space. We don't really have the time. I think it's problematic.
What's that?
Survey Monkey?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, the one that everybody uses.
Something like a survey.
There's Constant Contact has survey.
You could put a QR code in inside angle to make it easier for people to browse to.
I like it, yes. Good call.
So do you think we could have a draft of that by the July meeting?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. Of the questions?
And I can have a couple different drafts of different sets of directions, sure. Because I think it's one of the, it's going to, a lot of ways you can do it.
I'm a little behind the eight ball. Is there board direction on what we're looking for? I mean, do we know, what's the survey going to
I'm sorry.
glean? What are we gleaning from this survey?
Well, that's part of the board discussion. What kind of, what approach do you want to take from the survey? Because I think there are a couple different approaches you can take. Whether you want to get very specific with getting very detailed information about, or if you want a more broader picture, like just getting feedback, what people like about the library, what would they like to see us offer, where do they see the future?
This is in general, we're not focusing on anything specific.
I don't.
I need information. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we haven't really discussed it yet. So maybe that comes out of the conversation next month. I think I basically want your permission just to start advertising it and put a hard link in there that we can figure out what we want to do. Because that's the thing, that's such a time crunch.
We need the link out there before we have the survey, which puts us at a very tight timeline to put a survey in. I have a suggestion that nobody's going to like, but might actually help us.
Okay.
This would be a perfect opportunity for an ad hoc committee. I know. Bring out your pitchforks, I know, but
You want to hold on your back.
I'll volunteer for your ad hoc committee, George. If you're chairing it, I'll help you.
I think that's an excellent idea, George.
Why don't you share it?
I think you just agreed to share that, George.
Aren't you just going to be bringing things for them to react to, a lot of different questions and things like that, so they have it in front of them at the next meeting?
Yeah. I'm okay either way. I mean, if there are people that want to work on this and have the time to work on this, because you're right, we'll have to move quickly. I'm happy to work with the ad hoc committee.
I heard you.
I'm good for it. Nancy wants to join, you're open for it.
Okay.
Sure.
I actually laughed, but I would show up for it too.
Great idea, George.
I'll send out a doodle tomorrow.
All right.
Do we need a motion for that?
I think
Ad hoc
if there
committee, I
is
think
an
we
ad
do.
hoc committee, the president needs to declare it.
Declare it, or we need a motion?
I think the president says there shall be an ad hoc committee.
Well, there shall be an
or
ad hoc
whatever.
committee an ad hoc committee for the strategic planning process instrument, chaired by George. The members would be Nancy and Joe.
And
Anyone else?
Right.
Anyone else who wants to go to?
Brian needs to
When
be
you
on.
do
I'll
the
do
doodle,
that.
just let everybody.
I'll do everybody.
Yeah, and of course Ryan.
And if you can comment, I'm not interested out of the time, just so we know
Members are Nancy
who try to
and
fit
Joe,
in.
but anyone else.
There goes Kevin.
Everyone else will be.
I'll put that in instructions too. Comments.
And dates.
If
And you
interested.
can, what date
He's
you
gonna
can
do it.
You're gonna send out a doodle?
Yeah, or do we want to
Yeah,
do
let's
it?
send out, let's do it a doodle. We'll do that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. We're to the end.
We would like to have a staff development day, as we historically have done in the fall, Friday, September 18th. Part of this will involve engaging the staff on the strategic planning process, but more specifically, we're going to do a focus on diversity, some diversity training that day. That's the theme of the proposed staff development day. So I'm asking the board to approve closing the library on Friday, September 18th, so we can do staff development.
I move the library close on Friday, September 18th, 2015, for the purpose of a staff development day on diversity.
I second.
Okay, are you looking at closing the whole day, or sometimes the staff development was just for the morning, and the library would be open from noon to 6?
Yeah.
What are you looking at?
The plan is to do a full day of staff development.
Okay, so the library is closed the whole day.
That's what
Any other discussion?
Isn't that what
Okay. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
think this should be a
It's
roll
spending
call
money
vote.
for
It
saving
could,
money.
it could be considered to have some financial implications.
Okay.
Colwell,
Aye.
Beckwith,
Aye.
Sheldon,
Aye.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Kotsinis,
Aye.
Nimi,
Aye.
Dio,
Uh,
Ayes have it.
Okay.
I would like to commend the staff on their topic selection this year. Excellent.
Okay, possible agenda items.
I added a survey review and committee of the whole.
Yes, and, I'm sorry, what was the first thing you said?
Survey review.
Right, strategic planning, yeah, that's what I had too.
Disaster plan, I'd like to review the disaster plan,
Okay.
updated disaster plan.
Any that we can push back?
No? You think?
Do you want to push back the quarterly update of trustee training development budget versus?
You know,
action?
this might be something that, in view of the fact that we are spending so little money on this anymore, I believe we went to this quarterly update through a motion. And it's possible that since the budget has been cut in this area, that this report may not be necessary any longer. I don't know, what do other people think?
I agree. I believe that the previous board had started this, or one or two boards ago, because it was felt that certain trustees were abusing it. And I believe that that issue is no longer
Okay.
something that we need to watch so closely. I can tell you that if you choose to get rid of this policy, then I'll keep an eye on it, and if I feel that there's anything to report that's out of the ordinary, then I will include that in the finance
Would you
report.
prefer that we eliminate it through a motion?
Yes, but I'm
Move
just
that.
letting you know, if you do eliminate it, I will take on the responsibility to let you know if there's something unusual happening.
Is
What
there a
about
policy-
for the moment, changing it from quarterly to semi-annually?
I would just get rid of it altogether.
What if something happens to you?
But it's really
Well, it's a
only
line
trustee
item we can all
training.
see in the budget.
Right.
Don't
This would show up
we-
on the variance report in any event, wouldn't it?
Exactly, and
Well,
we
this was
discussed
like-
who's going where
Right.
as a
Right,
board.
well, this
so,
was like
yeah.
one trust,
Yeah,
didn't
we
go
know
over,
what
but,
you're saying.
yeah,
We know.
we're not gonna have that problem.
Don't kill that hope.
So I'll make a motion that the board eliminate the requirement for quarterly update of trustee training and development versus budget versus actual.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's gone.
These are on here, and I should probably cut the sport. Begin work on audit, begin work on employer, begin work on per capita grant. I don't know that the board has any act. I think that should have not.
G, H, and I.
That
Yeah.
looks good.
That's
So
good.
that helps us.
And also,
Now you know we'll be working on those things, so.
I had put on the trustee term length to discuss that, and I know there are, if we were to change it, we can do it by ordinance. So I can check on the timing of that. If you can do it anytime, I think you have to do it within a certain time of the election if you're going to do it. So I'll check on that, and if it can wait, we can push that off too. Any other ideas for agenda items that aren't on here? So Ryan and I have the idea that what we're going to do, we discussed this at bylaws, or at policy with a change to the bylaws. I think it was to bylaws. The idea that possibly we would make a requirement that the agenda be sent out 1 week prior to the meeting. But in talking about it, we have a little bit different take on it. We're going to try this, which will be that we're going to try to work on the agenda sooner rather than later. So say we got the agenda done in the next 10 days, based upon what we have said here. Then we will send it out to everyone. And then you will have time to ponder it and send, not a reply to all, but a reply to Ryan, asking for additional items. And you have until 1 week prior to the board meeting to do that. That way he has his marching orders for the agenda and he's got a full week to get the packet. So that's what we're gonna try and see if we can get it going a little sooner so it's not so last minute. Is that okay with everyone?
Sure.
Okay. It'll be like a working document. We'll get it out as soon as we can.
One question about item F, wouldn't that fall under the work we're already doing for policy 101 in policy committee?
Which, F, trustee
Yeah.
term length?
Yes. That is in policy 1001. Do we want
Yes.
to call it out
Yeah.
separately, or do we want to work on it as part of that policy?
Well, I think we need to make a decision if we want to change it first. So that's what I was putting on here, just in discussion.
You want to pursue it.
Over
If we
the
even
last
want to, there might not be-
couple of decades, that has been a separate item, although it is in the bylaws.
Over and over.
This has been a separate item of discussion. It comes up every few years. I will be happy to argue against it when it comes up.
Count on that.
Hey, come on, I've succeeded for 20 years. I've been willing to give it one more try.
So if, it's a discussion of whether we want to pursue it. It does have to be done through ordinance, and then we would, if we
Okay.
wanted to change it, we would change our bylaws to match.
Makes sense.
Anything else? Public forum? Is there anyone who wants to speak in public forum
I do.
at 9:15?
Oh, I just popped up. I just wanted to remind you, I think most of you know that SEMA's last day after almost 29 years is Friday. And so if you see her in the library, I just want to make sure that she's dedicated service for, in August it would have been 29 years. So just wanted to let you know that.
Okay. Announcements, anybody? I don't have any, well, except for what I just said about the agenda. Next board meeting's the 21st.
Go ahead.
No? Go ahead. All right, we have all the committee dates are already ready to go. Day of ALA. Intergovernmental picnic, did everybody see that they extended the RSVP to Friday? So if you want to go and you have an RSVP, you still have until Friday to do it.
That's what I was gonna stop.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a question. And this would be by other trustees or the director. Are we there?
It's your time to make an announcement.
Good.
Yep.
Out front, we have a collection box for the Lions Club. Okay.
Eyeglasses.
For
Eyeglasses.
glasses.
But, hey, shoes, I don't care. And around Christmas, we have that Sox tree,
Yeah.
okay? Is it possible that we could support Toys for Tots?
I have a comment on that.
Okay.
In the office I used to work at in Deerfield, 2 consecutive years Toys for Tots did not pick up the 2 huge boxes of toys we collected, and their reason was they had too many. And
I know a motorcycle that takes them all down, just give them a call. Every year, just
but,
like Santa.
I mean, they told us they had too many toys,
They have
and they didn't bother to pick theirs up.
unbelievable, huh? But there should be another, I mean, they should pick them up.
That's 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I'm gonna suggest we have this as a topic for a future board meeting, because this is a complicated issue, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna get, I mean, it's a good thought by Bob. We could talk about the pros and cons to working with different groups. As Andrea pointed out, just one of them, so.
Can we ask for the director's input, maybe not next meeting, because we've got another full schedule, but it would be, or maybe we can bring this up in the committee of the whole?
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know.
That's good.
Okay, I'll put it down for the first one. You have any other announcements?
I would just like to say, thank you all for a great evening. Although it was a long meeting, 2 hours and 15 minutes, I really enjoyed working with this board, and we got a lot done in 2 hours. Or so you got a lot done. Thank you. I mean, you are all helpful for me doing my job. I'm getting good feedback, positive, constructive, and I really appreciate that. You're helping me do my job and do it well. And that's, yeah, so I really appreciate all of you, so thank you very much.
Okay.
I move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nancy did.
I would like to remember officers Ryan Aston State.